Welcome. You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast, the show that cuts through the fog of war and updates you about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Hello, I'm Marina Yevshan, your host of the Russia-Ukraine War Report podcast, and today is August the 22nd, 2024. It has been 3,860 days since Russia started covert military operations in Crimea, 10 years and 183 days since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, 2 years and 180 days since Russia expanded its war of aggression, and 17 days since Ukraine counter-invaded Russia. Today's podcast covers the events that happened on Wednesday and Thursday morning. You will find the Russia-Ukraine war map helpful to visualize the areas discussed. There is a link in the podcast description. Once again, there are a lot of map updates today. The Russia-Ukraine war report is compiled by our team from around the world. Today's report includes information from our direct contacts and journalists in Ukraine, the Russian Ministry of Defense, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine morning reports, operational commands north, south, and east of Ukraine, open source intelligence, our in-house team of analysts and geospatial experts, and pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian mail bloggers and social media channels with a track record of trying to be accurate. We have one mission, the truth, because the truth matters. The script was very late today due to all of the activity, so I'm going to skip the daily assessment. You can listen to the first 4 minutes of the August the 21st podcast if you missed it. Over the last 2 days, Russia has stepped up attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure. From Tuesday to this morning, Russia launched 71 Shahed 136 one-way drones, 4 Iskander-M or North Korean-sourced Kn-23 short-range ballistic missiles, a Kh-59 guided air-to-surface missile, and at least 2 Kh-31P anti-radiation missiles. The majority of the attack occurred on Tuesday. 52 Shaheds were intercepted, 1 flew into Belarusian airspace, 1 flew into Russian airspace, and 16 more were disabled by electronic warfare. All but 2 of the SRBMs were intercepted. On Tuesday in the Zaporizhia Oblast, a Russian attack on Malokaterynivka struck a playground and children's cafe. A 14-year-old boy was killed and 6 children aged 10 to 17 were wounded. 3 adults aged 18 to 45 were also injured in the attack. 3 children remain in hospital, with 1 requiring surgery. In the city of Ternopil, the levels of aerosolized chlorine and hydrochloric acid were still over the safe limit after the August the 20th attack on an industrial facility and fuel depot. Residents remained under a shelter-in-place order and to only leave their home when, quote, absolutely necessary. A Russian attack on critical civilian infrastructure knocked out power to the city of Kherson and 24 surrounding settlements. The attack also damaged the city's water system. Now for the action report summary. Yesterday, Russia carried out 134 discrete assaults, and through August the 21st, the 7-day moving average for daily attacks dropped to 145. The VKS, that's the Russian Aerospace Forces, carried out 99 airstrikes, dropping 122 bombs on civilian and military targets in Ukraine. Russian ground forces conducted approximately 4,500 fire missions using tubed and barrel artillery. Let's go into the details of what happened on the battlefield. This would be a good time to open up the war map on a second device and find the city of Sumy, that's in the northeastern part of Ukraine. There is a link to the map in the podcast description. Ready? Here we go. I start in the Glushkovsky area of operation, or AO, where there were no changes in territorial control. New high-resolution satellite imagery showed that the same river bridge in Karish can only support foot traffic, with damage concentrated on the Samarka side of the river. Sentinel Hub-2LA low-resolution satellite imagery confirmed that Russian forces had not established new wet crossings over the same river. A Ukrainian video showed that Russian bridging equipment and engineers were high-priority targets, with multiple drone strikes behind the known line of conflict in the Rylsky district. The Ukrainian Air Force bombed the northeastern area of Glushkovsky, indicating that air parity was established in the border areas. Russian sources did not report any civilian casualties. Russian propagandist Roman Sapanykov claimed that the civilian evacuation had been suspended because the boat crossing was, quote, controlled by enemy drones. He went as far as to advise, be careful not to get involved. In the Korenevo AO, numerous Russian sources, including mercenary mail bloggers Vogonzo and Rybar, reported fighting within Komarovka. While my script was being edited, Russian sources released a video showing a Ukrainian T-64 medium-duty tank destroyed in the center part of the settlement. Ukrainian forces also released a video showing 2 Russian soldiers have been taken prisoner. Ukrainian troops control the farm on the southeastern edge of Komarovka, indicating that the remaining Russian garrison will have to cross the Snagast River. The Russian Ministry of Defense, or Armored, reported the VKS bombed Apanasovka, Snagast and Vishnyovka, further confirming all 3 settlements are under Ukrainian control. After days of claims that Ukraine had captured Krasnooktyabrsky versus it still being under Russian control, we aligned with the August 20th report from the Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Colonel General Alexander Syrsky, and changed the status to contested. Russian sources reported that fighting was ongoing. To the north, Armored reported the VKS bombed Korenevo, and multiple Russian sources claimed fighting was ongoing in the settlement. Satellite imagery showed a significant increase in artillery activity between August 18th and 21st on the approaches to Korenevo and Nikipelovka and west of Matveevka, where Ukrainian presence was visually confirmed. NASA firms suggested there were significant fires in the Russian-occupied area west of the railroad tracks, and Rybar's latest map update continued to show the eastern part of Tolpina as contested. Ukrainian forces were visually confirmed near the 367th kilometer place railroad stop south of Alexandrovka, within meters of General Syrsky's August 20th assessed line of conflict. Russian sources continued to report that Krymiania is contested. In our assessment, a line of conflict has not been established in this area, and a Russian armored personnel carrier, or APC, was destroyed in nearby Kalinov. SWIR imagery from the 21st of August showed combat-related fires within the settlement. We are unprepared to update the war map because the false-color satellite imagery showed new, chaotic artillery activity north of the settlement, which suggests that between August 18th and 21st, Ukrainian forces were able to advance. Absent any new intelligence, we will reassess the situation on Friday. In the Lgov operational direction, or OD, fighting was reported in the areas of Sheptuhovka, Kauchuk and Semenovka. Satellite imagery indicates that the situation for the Russian garrison in Sheptuhovka is difficult. SWIR images showed new combat-related fires, including in the center of the settlement. It was a similar situation in Kauchuk, where there were significant combat-related fires. Between August 18th and 21st, new artillery strikes were detected east of Anastasievka and Levshenka, indicating that the 19th of August reports of a Ukrainian advance in these areas were likely accurate. Additionally, our analysis of satellite images found there is continued intense fighting in a forested area west of Semenovka. Our analysts also located clear indications of combat activity further north than previously known, near Petrovska and as far north as Diakovka. There is not enough information to determine if this was Ukrainian forces interdicting the Russian ground line of communication, GLOC, that's a supply line between Kalantaevka and Kauchuk, or Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance units, or DRG, coming into contact with Russian forces. Based on our analysis, recent fighting is 14 kilometers south of Lgov, and we adjusted the grey area. We removed the grey area corridor from Pogribki to Malaya Loknya and assessed the Russian claims that elements of the Russian 18th Guards Motor Rifle Division are surrounded at the regional prison in Malaya Loknya are accurate. Today's situation report provides an in-depth analysis that I can't include in the podcast, but I have some good news. Today's situation report is a free preview. There is information in the podcast description on how to download your own copy. No registration required. Here's the short version. Comparing enhanced low-resolution satellite images from August the 18th to the 21st showed the buildings south of the prison are severely damaged. There are also indications of significant damage to the prison wall south of the main gate. Additionally, SWIR imagery showed combat-related fires on both sides of the railroad grade east of Hitrovka, in the same region where General Syrsky put the line of conflict on August the 20th. Based on all the available information, it is our assessment that Russian forces are surrounded at Malaya Loknya and have likely retreated to the regional prison. Northeast of Malaya Loknya, Russian forces released a picture showing they still occupied the hamlet of Nechaev and its two houses. Yesterday I told you we had assessed the area was contested. In the Bolshoe Soldatskoe AO, there were significant combat-related fires in the northern part of Cherkasskaya Porechная and new artillery scarring or spot fires east of the settlement. Fighting continued on the northern edge of Martinovka, which is under Ukrainian control. Ukrainian forces have established positions in southern Ruskaya Konopelka, with Russian artillery shelling the settlement. Drone video showed that in the fog of war, a Russian BMP-3 infantry fighting vehicle opened fire on another BMP-2 supporting the assault, destroying it. Low-resolution satellite imagery showed that Russian forces established a GLOC by traversing the field to the east of the settlement, rather than using the dirt road from Osipova Luka or the paved road from Pushkarnaya, a village to the north that is in the grey area. This indicates that Ukraine holds fire control on the Ruskaya Konopelka-Pushkarnaya road and may have remote mined the roads east of the settlement. In Sudzha, Russian residents under occupation repeated earlier reports that there had been no previous order to evacuate, and only those who had personal transportation or connections left. Ukrainian officials reported that Russia has started shelling the settlement, despite the significant civilian population that remains. Ukrainian administrators are working to improve the distribution of humanitarian aid. In the Belitsa AO, uncontrolled fires were consuming the forests and marshlands north of Barki and Spalnaya. Armod reported that the VKS carried out airstrikes on Barki, further confirming that Ukrainian forces maintain control of the settlement. The Russian 382nd Naval Infantry Brigade reported heavy fighting was ongoing northeast of Ozerki at a bunker compound behind the second echelon of the Prigozhin line. Northwest of Ozerki, a Russian BTR, that's an armored personnel carrier, was destroyed by a Ukrainian drone. Here is my theater-wide update for the Kursk area. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reported that the VKS had increased the number of bombings of Ukraine-occupied Russia, carrying out 17 airstrikes and dropping 27 bombs. War Gonzo, citing Russian officials, reported that from August the 6th to the 21st, 30 civilians had been killed and 143 wounded due to fighting in the Kursk region. Moscow indefinitely postponed local elections in 7 regions of the Kursk Oblast, stating there is a lack of, quote, full security guarantees for voters. Portable bomb shelters started to arrive in Kursk, Kurchatov and Zheleznogorsk. Russian officials reported they plan to install a total of 60 structures. On the edge of Kursk, someone spray-painted "We are waiting for the AFU" on the base of the stele. AFU is a short for Armed Forces of Ukraine. It was reported that autocrat Vladimir Putin had ordered the Ministry of Defense and the Federal Security Service of Russia, FSB, to liberate all territories of the Kursk Oblast by October the 1st. Good luck with that. In a further indication that Russia has no strategic reserve available for internal defense, families of conscripts in the Siberian region Kemerovo and Irkutsk oblasts are reporting that conscripts are being mobilized for deployment to Kursk. The Russian anti-war organization Go to the Forest reported they have had a sharp increase in reports of conscripts being mobilized and forced to sign military contracts.
You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War Podcast. Our team of journalists, researchers, and analysts is funded by readers, listeners, and viewers just like you. To support independent journalism, please consider becoming a patron. You can find us on patreon.com/malcontentnews.
Let's not forget about my home. Here is what happened in Ukraine, starting in the Kharkiv Oblast. In the Liptsy-Vovchansk AO, fighting continued in Vovchansk and the area of Gluboke. Geolocation of new videos showed there has been no change in territorial control. Further south, in the Kupiansk AO, Russian attacks north of Sinkivka, northwest of Petropavlivka and the southern part of Berestove were repulsed. In the Luhansk Oblast, west of occupied Svatove, Russian attacks east of Stelmachivka, Andriivka and Novosergiivka and from the western edge of Sergiivka were unsuccessful. West of Kremenna, Russian attacks in the direction of Makiivka, Grekivka and Torske were repulsed. In the occupied region of the Luhansk Oblast, a Ukrainian drone strike destroyed a Buk air defense system west of Nizhnya Duvanka. Now let's talk about the Donbass, where we start in the northeastern part of the Donetsk Oblast. In the Konstantinivka AO, Russian forces continued their assaults in the area of Grigorivka, the western edges of the canal district of Chasiv Yar, and in the direction of Predtechene from the Klishchiivka area. There was no change in the situation. The situation in the Toretsk-New York AO remains critical. Fighting was concentrated on the eastern edge of Toretsk between Pivnichne to the northeast and Zalizne to the east. Russian forces advanced into Nelipivka, while Ukrainian forces continued to hold part of the industrial district and the residential area in northeastern New York. Russian assaults continued on the eastern edge of Panteleimonovka, with no change in the situation. In southwestern Donetsk Oblast, Russian forces made additional advances in the Pokrovsk AO. Russian attempts to advance in the direction of Vozdvizhenka, Zelene Pole and Myrolubivka were repulsed. Fighting continued in southeastern Hrodivka, the northwestern tip of Zhuravka, the eastern edge of Novogrodivka, in the direction of Marinivka and near Ptycha. Russian forces occupied the village of Komyshivka, bypassing the water obstacle of Vovcha River Reservoir at Skuchne. Residents of Pokrovsk, where up to 30,000 civilians remain, lined up for evacuation. Within the city, the sounds of constant artillery strikes and bombings can be heard in the distance. Please leave now. In the Kurahovo, Russian forces continue to be stuck between Netailov and Karlivka and south of the Lozova River in northwestern Krasnohorivka. Russian attacks on Maximilianivka and near Pobeda were repulsed. The Ukrainian 79th Brigade attacked Russian troops who advanced west of Paraskoviivka to the northeastern edge of Kostantinivka. Based on the new intelligence, we adjusted the map. Today, our last section is the Russian front. Ukrainian drones attacked the Marinovka military airfield in the Volgograd region, 460 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The base was hit multiple times, and over 6 hours after the first strike, large secondary explosions continued. Videos showed large fires burning out of control. I almost forgot. All of the videos I mentioned today are linked in our situation report, including a lot of material I can't cover in today's podcast. There's a link in the podcast description. NASA firms indicated that ammunition cook-off caused a large grass fire near the airfield. On the 19th of August, satellite images showed there were 29 Su-34s on the flight line and 8 semi-trucks. Marinovka is a launch point for Shahed-136 drones, with the 11th of August satellite images from Planet Labs showing launches at the airfield, and it is believed the trucks are filled with drones. In the Rostov region, the strategic fuel storage facility in Proletarsk continued to burn out of control with new explosions. Firefighters have made almost no progress in controlling the situation. Yes, everything is going to plan. And that's what we know. Your support of my home, Ukraine, helps us make history and protect the future for all.
You've been listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. To help keep us independent, please consider providing financial support by becoming a patron. Want on-demand news in your hand? Download the Google News app and make Malcontent News one of your favorites to receive breaking news updates. Thank you for listening.